All right, so welcome to Intuition to Income 2024. This is Abby Gooch, and I am so happy you're here for this amazing show with these amazing speakers. And I just feel so blessed with each one that I get to connect with and watch their hearts just illuminate mine and yours and just ripple this love out into the world. And really, it's love because we're all following our intuitions. And that's just the greatest gift I believe that we have, and opening to that heart space, listening to our gut feeling, and being guided moment to moment into our highest expansion. I really feel is like our soul's involvement, right? And that's why we're here. So I want to welcome to the show Susan Peters, and she is an author of an amazing book. She has an incredible story that I will allow her to share because she's going to tell it even better than I could. And yeah, she's actually really even a referral from one of my dear friends. Like Anna doesn't even know, but I found out about Susan through Anna because I just really connected with Susan's heart. I could just feel her. So welcome to the show, Susan.
Thank you so much for having me, Abby. I really am grateful to be here.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got on this path and your story, just kind of like the background of it all?
Yeah, sure. It happened about 3.5 years ago. My husband, who was healthy and fine, ended up getting sick the day of our son's wedding and had the pain in his stomach to the point where we were like an hour away from going to the venue, and we had to call an ambulance because he was on the bathroom floor, hardly able to even speak. And luckily his brother went with him to the hospital, and I was able to go to the wedding, but it was just kind of such a crazy day. We thought maybe it was his gallbladder or something, but it ended up being his pancreas burst. So within 3 days, his whole entire life was in total threat danger, and he was sent to a multiple organ failure hospital by Lifeline ambulance, where he stayed for 4.5 months, and then he passed away on Valentine's Day. So it was one heck of a ride.
Wow. So how did you get through that?
It was it was just pure faith at the time, and trusting that somehow, some way I'll get through, because I didn't really have a choice.
Right.
Um, there was it was COVID time, and they wouldn't even allow anybody in the hospital except me. So my kids and his brothers and family, nobody else could visit. No one could support me. It was a crazy time. And then for 2 months, the whole hospital closed down. So it wasn't even possible. So I had to leave, tell him goodbye, saying, I don't know if I'll ever see you again. And then trust that hopefully I would. And so it was a whole crazy time. I was a spiritual person, and I had my faith, which got me through it all, but also left me with lots of questions, because I was like, how could all these things be happening? Such, horribly terrible things, to somebody who was such a loving, good person that did so many things. I mean, he played the organ and piano at church, and he was kind. He would help anybody he could, and then all of a sudden now he's just failing, and there was nothing we could do. And but there was always these things there was a lot of connections to nature. And while I was going through it, like every time I would drive to the hospital, there would be like something showing me, like animals would show up, or there would be a beautiful sunset, or there would be a beautiful moon shining that night. And I mean, one night I even actually woke up at 2 in the morning. I was staying at my son's house because I was 3.5 hours away from the hospital. He lived only a half an hour away. So I stayed there for 7 weeks, and I was in my granddaughter's room, and at 2:30 in the morning, I thought somebody was touching my arm, and I woke up and I looked, and the full moon was shining on my arm. And in that moment, I felt just the most tremendous peace, saying, you are seen, you are loved, don't worry, everything will be okay. And I didn't know what that meant. And obviously, it didn't mean John would get better because he died, but it gave me so much peace, and let me know that I was cared for and he was cared for. So it didn't really matter if I was there or if somebody was there, but it was still okay. And then there was another moment where there was a really bad day at the hospital, and he didn't even really know me. He was having trouble with his mental capacities, and I stayed longer than usual in hopes that he might come out of it. And so as I left, I would usually get to see a sunset on the way home and at least have that perk up on the way back. But it was kind of late, and I was like, it's already dark. I missed the sunset, and I was kind of in the zone, and I was mad at God, and I was like, I slammed my hand on the dashboard and I said, and I don't even get my sunset tonight, God, and I'm not joking you. As soon as I said that, I drove under this bridge on the highway, and out in front of me, across the whole entire sky from west to east, was the last remnants of the purple, black, yellow, orange sunset, like right there. I couldn't ignore it. I'm like, okay, okay, I understand. I am not in control. And that's when I finally realized, when I'm not in control, that then anything can happen, and it will be for our greatest and highest good. And I really, really believe that, even though at that time I did not have the words for that, I still had to just keep trusting. And there were still a heck of a lot of hard days, and it was a really heck of a hard journey. But at the same time, it was those moments that made me say, there's something way bigger than me. And there's something more important going on. Not important is the right word, but um I'm just not seeing the whole picture. You know what I mean? It's
Wow, that's so beautiful. You give me chills. So I needed to hear that. So sometimes and I'm sure some other people listening have felt that, like, oh my gosh, it's hard. What's going on? Like, I just need to have faith. And what really resonated with me when you said you're not in control. And I would love for you to expand on that, because in that moment you said you had more faith. And so how does that happen where you're like, okay, not in control, but I'm going to have faith because I have to? On the other side of that, you obviously have a lot of peace because you're connected to the moon. And I remember, it's just, I feel everything is interconnected because, I've taught in schools, and I remember reading this book to these kids about a moon and how, like, the moon is always loving you no matter where you are. So it's just, even that is like a synchronicity, even with this conversation, how everything's connected, even the smallest things. But I
yeah.
love that just bigger picture perspective, right? So yeah, if you can just expand a little bit and offer some guidance and wisdom onto how letting go of control allows you to have your highest good. Because like I said, for me, I'm like, oh, I want to, like, make sure I'm okay. Let me control this or that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, thank goodness, in some ways it was just because of the situation, of because it was COVID and I
Yeah.
really didn't have control. And I mean, I had been watching all the people that were dying around us that whole time anyway, and realizing how precious life is, and what a gift it is just to be together even in a day. We were in a car accident like 20 years before all of this happened, when my husband was seriously hurt, with both of his legs and ankles broken, and we were all in the hospital, and we all could have died at that point, but we didn't. And so, like, I was grateful. So part of it was like this graciousness that, like, well, we could have died then and we didn't. So I have to sit in the moment and trust, because somehow we made it through that.
Mm,
Somehow we'll make it through this. So it was partly that. And then it was just a matter of, there's not really much other choice at the moment. Like, maybe if like 20 people were around me and we were all trying to figure things out, it might have been different, but I didn't have that option. So I literally had to go into myself. I had, myself and God and the universe to go to, and nobody else at that time. So it made it, in some ways better for me, because I had that ability to do that, and I had alone time. Even when I went home for 2 months, nobody was visiting me because everyone was on lockdown, and I just kind of had to sit through the holidays. It was Thanksgiving and Christmas and everything, and it was good and bad. I listened to a lot of music. I worked puzzles, and let myself just be, kind of. And I think in those moments it just allowed me to deal with it the best I could. It
yeah.
still wasn't easy, but it's just that somehow that silence and that innerness makes a huge difference. And I don't know, oh, bless you. I don't think I would have realized that if I didn't have that time of COVID, just to sit in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just taking a moment to just be in that silence and that just like sacred heart space of, I just feel like there's a quietness and maybe even like a certainty of a knowing that we're okay no matter what, because we're always connected to God?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did feel that. It's the strangest, most ironic thing, but I felt so much connection, even though I was very disconnected in a lot of ways.
Well, my mom, she's one of my best friends and my heroes in a lot of ways. She talks about how we're always connected. We're always connected, no matter what. So it's like, even if there was a hurricane, we're still connected, you know? And it's like, I've had clients that are like houses away from a hurricane, but they're still like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Because we're in that alignment of like, okay, there's a certainty within that you can even feel in your gut that keeps you connected. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting ride, but I learned a lot. I mean, it really has taught me some huge lessons. I also learned from my husband because when I was able to see him, he was very calm and quiet what he was going through. Like he wouldn't turn on the TV. He didn't want books. He couldn't do a lot of things because he was very weak. He couldn't even hardly hold the phone. But like he didn't even really want those kinds of things. And he went inward. And that also like helped me to understand how important it was to go inward because I saw him gain inner strength through that. And so he a lot of times mirrored that to me, and I was able to carry it with me.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I was just feeling his spirit on what we call the other side, and he's so much in the light. And I was sharing with you before we got on that my dad's there too, in that lighter space up there in heaven, whatever you want to call it, you know, in that other space. But yeah, I almost feel like they're happy and just sending us light, you know, wanting us to have the best experience. And to me, like when my dad physically passed, he became my angel, right? So he walks with me. So it's a very beautiful journey of connecting in a different way. So, you know, I know that, you know, there could be somebody listening right now that, you know, has had a traumatic experience. Maybe they lost a loved one as well. And so just finding that bridge through the heart of then being able to see and hear and know not only your guidance, but also those who have, you know, crossed over. So if there's anything you want to share about that, you know, please do.
Yeah, I did feel it's really interesting that you because you say about the heart, and that's the space that did expand for me. It ultimately it was first broken and I felt like it was shattered, but at the same time, that's what opened me up to find who I really was inside. And I really felt John was the one who was helping me to realize that there was a bigger thing that needed to be found, you know, and because of that, I started searching and going to summits and reading and finding anything I could, you know, about that extra spiritual life for when somebody passes. And then also what is my purpose? Because if he's gone, it can't just be that we're here just to survive this world and go to the next. There has to be a better reason, right? Because for a while I was like, okay, now I just have to survive till I die. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. You know, and so I think John helped me to lead me to different people that have helped me on my journey to see, yes, there is a greater purpose, and we are all here for a reason, and we're even choosing to be here at this time, and that has made a huge difference in how I look at things because now I'm not just existing, I'm living, and then Anna Kowalska, who I've worked with, who's the one you know that brought us together. She was teaching us, you know, how important it is to have a dream, not teaching us, but saying, you know, what is your dream? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really have any anymore. My husband died. We had dreams, we lived them. I'm happy we had them, but can I even have another dream? You know, I was kind of stuck. I was stuck for 3 whole days. And then she sent an email that said, "What can you do right now to make that dream happen?" And all of a sudden I was like, I need to go into my heart because that's where I'm holding on. I felt like I was holding myself on a long leash. I kind of was freeing myself from, you know, everything that happened, but I still wasn't. And I realized that I need to love and trust myself 100% in order to go forward. And so all of a sudden, once I realized that, I was like, I could marry my heart. And that way I can love myself and trust myself 100%. I don't have my spouse anymore, but I can love myself and I can go forward. And once I did that, I was like, I can get a ring. I can create a ceremony. I can take myself on a heart honeymoon and I can still live, you know? And all of a sudden, my heart was just like overflowing with this joy and this expansion that I was like, wow, I just like felt like this is so amazing that I can actually do this. And then I did. I created a beautiful ceremony on a snowy night where I stepped outside barefoot in the snow and I
Wow.
had my little ring and a singing bowl. It has a little heart on it, and I decided I'm going to commit. And the whole universe felt like it was with me that night. I felt this wind stir up on my feet. They felt warm and it went all the way up me and out and flipped my hair up. And I just felt so noticed and so present and so loved, like I've never felt in my entire life. And then I was able to go on, and I took myself on this honeymoon that like was in a place I'd never been before. I've never even gone on a vacation and booked a place by myself to go to. I drove like 4 hours away to this little town, and all of a sudden I was meeting these strangers and sharing my story with them. And it was so cool because then my vulnerability of sharing my story of like why I was there and what happened to my husband, all of a sudden those people were sharing their stories, and they were like, well, my husband died and I had 3 kids and my mom and dad have helped me raise them. I so can relate to your story. And
Wow.
other people were trying to help me because I was there like living my dream, and like, oh, you should walk down the river and go to this place in nature. It's really beautiful. The birds are migrating in and you can be part of the migration happening. And it was like, wow, how cool is that? Because like I felt like I was migrating to a new place, and I'm there at the exact same time. These birds happen to be flying through only like for that week. And I was like, wow, what another sign from the universe that we can change and we can grow, and we do have to let go in order to be able to go do what we need to do. Like, it was like stepping into a whole new world. And I'm like, and it's possible. Like it became possible because I actually took the step to do it. If I would have stayed home, I never would have known of that possibility. I wouldn't have never had that connection, and I would have still been stewing in my own self, and and sad about that. But because of that, I stepped into life in a new way, and now all these things were becoming stories to me and real life people and real life experiences. And then that's what made me feel like I really need to write a book about it, because it's like a story that other people can relate to, because everybody goes through loss, everybody goes through grief of all different kinds. It doesn't have to be even a person. We lose our jobs, we lose our houses, we lose, the places we live, and have to change all the time. Every day there's lots of changes going on. But it
Mhm.
reminded me that it's just like the seasons. When I'm out in nature, there's so many changes, but there's always something to look forward to. It's like, we go through the fall when everything's dying, and the winter where it seems dead, but then the spring comes and the beautiful flowers and the birds come back, and then we enjoy the summer again. And we get that in our lives if we choose it.
So why do you think that is? Like, why do you think part of life and transformation is the word that's coming through, that we need to let go of something to then rebirth and have something else? Or why do you think that's even necessary to have to lose something? And I should even put that in quotes. It's just to lose something to
Yeah.
get, yeah.
Yeah, I just had a whole summit about that. And but it's really neat because another container that I was in with Anna, it was called available, and she says the only thing that that can make us available for something else is if we let go of something. So we have to lose something in order to gain something. And if we do it by choice, I can tell you from my own experience, every single time I've let go of something, I've gotten something better. It's never been something worse, even if it's been hard, even if it's been challenging, which that happens all the time also. But always in the end, it has been something better. So I've learned that to let go of what's hard, to let go of what's challenging, to let go of a person, to let go of someone, and even just life, um, always still brings something better. And it seems super ironic, but I've lived it and it's real.
Ah, that's amazing. I needed to hear that. Thank you. Huh. So the other thing I wanted to go into is you said to trust you basically married your heart, and that is what allowed you to trust yourself, if I'm understanding. So by following your heart and listening to your heart, that puts you in 100% trust of yourself. Is that correct?
Yes. Like, I mean, I had to choose it. I had to really say to myself, I'm going to trust you 100%, because
Your heart.
yes, my heart. And I was like, I really have to just trust myself. Like, I can't expect it to come from out here. Like, if before I used to rely on my husband. And then I think after he died, I was relying on, okay, who else is going to help me? Who else is going to save me? How am I going to survive? And all of a sudden I started realizing, wait a minute, I have the potential and the possibility to do it. And when I had that switch in my head, then I was able to see it in a different way. And that's why, to me, marrying my heart was so important, because it was like I was really saying, I'm really going to connect to me, not what someone else is telling me to do, not what I'm reading about, not what's been done for all these years, not what I used to do, but what I can do right now and how I can make the switch by my choices.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because I teach intuition. So basically, the heart is the gateway to your intuition. So the first step to connect with your intuition is to connect with your heart. So when you're saying you married your heart, I'm sure that's a large part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because it's like that's the gateway. So you're trusting your intuition when you're trusting your heart, you know?
Yeah, that's really true. And I found that, I mean, there's so much more connection to my whole self now because of that. Now I feel so much more connected to body, mind, and spirit because I lost John. Like it's crazy sounding, but like he helped me to see things in so many new ways and from new perspectives. And it is because my heart, body, mind, and soul are all connected now. And I feel like his is connected to mine too. Like I really do. I feel like he's helping me and guiding me because every single person that I've met along the way has kind of just like flowed into my life. And I
Yeah.
haven't gone seeking them. They've come to
Yeah.
me,
Uh-huh.
and they're all people that he would relate with also. So it's such a cool thing.
Well, my mom said the same thing. You know, they were married for, I mean, what? I'm 40, so they were married like at least 20 years. And so yeah, she said the same. I mean, it's like she feels almost even closer to him. I mean, they're just so
Yeah.
connected to the heart and he walks with her too. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's almost like love really expands. It seems like we've lost a love, but it doesn't. It really expands and
Right.
expands in so many ways, not even just one way, so many ways.
Mhm. So there's nothing to fear, it sounds like, in
No.
living.
Yeah, and that's what I really learned because I was like super scared after he died. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm living in fear. I'm telling everyone, don't tell anybody that he died. That now I'm by myself. And all of a sudden, once I got over that and realized that there is really nothing to fear, and like this is how I explained it. I went on my heart honeymoon, and I had to go through a toll booth that we have, the old kind that still have a gate and a red light. And so I'm like funneling through these concrete blocks, and I'm like, okay, I have the option to turn and go back home because I'm kind of scared to go. But if I go through those gates, that means I'm saying yes, I'm gonna do this, and I already committed to my heart, so I'm gonna do it. And so when the light turned green and the gate opened and I went through that portal onto the other side, oh my gosh, I literally felt chills in my body. And I mean, like I was a new person. I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. I went through the portal. I am on my way to a new life. And I was like so excited. I turned on my music louder. I rolled down the windows and I'm like, let's go. And it was like just neat to physically go through that shift. And I talked to somebody else who did that when her husband died, and she went across a bridge and she was always scared to go across bridges. And she's like, I'm just like, I've got to get across this bridge. I've got to get across this bridge. And then as soon as she got across the bridge, same thing. I did it. I did it. I did it. And on to a new life. And it doesn't mean we forget our person or we forget the life behind us in that sense, because we carry all the memories and the beautiful things and the love, but we let go of the stuff that's holding us back and the fears, like you said, and what we don't need to carry anymore. It frees us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just feeling like just to keep it simple, it's like to me, what I'm hearing is just follow your heart.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
It's,
when you have a question, it's like, okay, put your hand on your heart and just
yeah.
feel it and be like, what does my heart say? Because I feel like the mind can get so complicated, people's thoughts, the energy, but it's like just if everybody wants to even now just, put either one or two hands on your heart, close your eyes, and just, you can think of a question and then you can just ask, like, what does my heart say? And just feel your heart. Let's just take a few just deep breaths together and just feel that silence and let the answer come. Whenever you feel complete, can just open your eyes. And I know for me and just working with my students, when the answer comes and you feel peaceful, you know that that's your intuition speaking to you. That's your soul guiding you. And it almost makes me cry just because my dad knows he was very smart too, like can get really over intellectual, like just really overthink things when it's like the heart already knows the truth. And so the pain and the suffering I feel can often come from overthinking or getting wrapped up in emotions. But love itself is neutral, like it just is. And so when we're in that place, it's actually really easy to navigate and use, the inner compass of our intuition, like, oh, okay, I'm going to move in this direction because it feels right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's a really beautiful way to look at it. And our heart will never let us down. We just have to trust it to not let it, to say, to follow it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I know, like, in my life right now, like, external things are starting to shift as I'm following my heart. And it's very scary,
Oh, yeah.
like, including moving. And I'm like, wait, like, I like this house, but it's like, I've been guided for months to move. And now it's just kind of like really time. And I'm like, what is going on? And like, it's just weird, because it's like, my mind's like, but I like it here. And then it's like, but you're being kind of like pushed out. Like, it's time to go, and I've had that since last November of just this, like, it's time.
Yeah, I totally understand that too, because I mean, when I started going through all this and I was learning from everybody, I'm like, this is all great. But then Anna's, I call her my nudge. But now it's time you have to start sharing things with the world. You have to be a nudge, to somebody else. And
Right.
so I'm like, okay. And so I started working with, a few different people too. And they all were kind of saying the same thing. You need to step forward. You need to do this. You need to do that. And so somebody was telling me my friend Damara Kenor, who was on my summit, said, you need to do a summit. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do a summit. I don't know how to do a summit. I've never interviewed anybody. And just think about it. And so I really didn't think I would. And then I finally came to the conclusion that, well, with my book, I got people in my book. All these people that I'm working with have been my story. They're the ones who helped me journey through all of this with my heart, and they all are heart-centered people. And because she said that to do a summit, I was like, okay, well, if I include these people that are in my book and make it as part of that, I
Mhm.
could do it. And so then they all said yes, and they were all part of it. And that, otherwise I would not be here today talking with you, because that's how you saw me. And I was scared out of my mind to do it. It was really, really hard. But at the same time, I was like, the same, like you said, it's kind of like, it's time. I needed to do it. It was something that was calling to me. It needs to be out in the world, because people need to hear that loss is not the end of things. That loss is only the beginning of a new chapter. And if we look at it as a new chapter in our life, then it gets a little bit exciting instead of overwhelmingly sad or overwhelmingly scary. It becomes a little bit exciting. And even the things that are hard, you're willing to work through them, because you want to see what's going to come next.
Mhm. That's the faith I think you're talking about,
Yeah.
having that. Yeah, that's really cool.
And also knowing that we have the opportunity to help others, and help them be able to see things from new perspectives. And I love that too, because people helped me to see things from new perspectives and get a new focus that I wouldn't have had on my own. And so the more we
Yeah.
interconnect with each other, the more we can see things in new ways and better ways and stronger ways. And then we all can grow and build something even better, create something even better, love more.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, yeah, the expansion of that. Yeah, just to trust it. It's
Yeah.
how do you guide people to kind of heal the grief, right? Because I agree with you. There is faith and trust that it is leading us to something better, and that ultimately our souls are guiding us there for a reason, right? Which actually brings to mind another question. I have a two-part question. Based on your experience, do you believe that our soul, so to me, when we listen to our intuition, that's our soul guiding us, has already planned it out? Like, as long as we follow our heart, we're going to be in alignment with our soul? Or what do you feel that is about, like, that destiny almost might be the best word?
Yeah, I've really learned a lot about how that we do make choices, and that we do have some things that we've planned ahead of time that we want to do in our lifetime. Um, I know that we still have choices and free will to do all of those things, so we have to still say yes. I think though, when we discern, like you said, and use our intuition to guide us and say yes to the things that are on our path, then it will flow to us. And I think it comes easily in that sense, that where we need to go. There's still, a lot of things that come with that, that we have to still do and say yes to. But it ultimately, the yes leads us to another yes and another yes. And then when you look back on it, those yeses, you're like really glad you said yes to them because you see how they've affected other people's lives. And you realize if I didn't say yes, 10 steps ago, and to the next step and the next step and the next step, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to connect with certain people and to have a chance to share, my loss and my ways of walking through that loss. And I've also been able to meet other people who are walking through loss, who are trying to step forward too. And then we kind of can connect together and in ways that help us to do that, to be more expansive and to bring people to a place of greater peace with those kinds of things. So I think it's kind of interesting, like almost like we've all planned to be together, but we don't really know it until we're together,
Right.
So you have to say the yes first and then see what happens. And but I have not regretted any of my yeses, that's for sure.
Mhm. So yeah, I mean, I think it's listening to the yeses of your heart. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing you say that we come saying we want to do certain things, which I agree. Like we come with a certain purpose, wanting to have children or not, the people like the partner or partners that we'll meet, whatever that is. And it's like saying yes to our intuition, really following our yeses, our heart will allow that manifestation to actually happen for us to experience what we came here to experience. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, it really does. Like, I mean, like in some ways, people might think I'm crazy. Like, well, okay, so I wanted my husband to die. I wanted him to get sick. I wanted to have a car accident. And it's not like that, but it's like the experiences that I had with those things, like I would never take them away, even though they were really horrendous and not something that I would really wish upon anybody, and even on myself. But I've become such a stronger person because of that. And I've seen like my husband go through all the things he went through, and he helped me to see that too, that even
Yeah.
through these difficulties we can still be strong, and we can still we can affect so many lives
Yeah.
by getting through those things, and to realize that anything is possible no matter what. We all have the ability to do that. So
Mm-hmm. I just wrote down your soul has a plan. I just like that. And,
yeah.
when you just come in alignment with it, you experience the transformation of sometimes letting go and losing something to then gain something greater, which brings me to the second part of the question, which is how do you deal with the grief? And I might have even answered the question, right? You're getting to something greater, but how do you actually deal with that deep emotion of grief? Because that moves through the body.
Yeah. You have to let it out. I mean, it does have to move. It can't stay stuck. That's the one thing I've learned. And you have to release it. And if you cry every day and you have to, if you want to, hit the towel on the bed, or you want to scream, you have to do it because it's a hard thing. Grief is very, very hard. And if you try to keep it in, it just will tear you up. And so it has to get released. And so, like, I mean, the first year I was a mess. Like, I wasn't like an overly emotional person, but like I would cry every single day. And things that I never thought, would make me cry would, like I'm cooking supper and I'm crying. Like I never cried when I cooked supper, but like I was cooking something that he liked or that we liked to eat together.
Yeah.
There were times I was like, maybe I shouldn't cook this anymore. I'm like, no, I'm going to. And then there's even things like celebrating anniversaries and holidays and things like that without him. And so I would sit there and I would put his picture on the table and I would just sit alone and have a dinner with him or a breakfast with him. And I would talk to him like he was there. I would remember memories. I would laugh, I would cry, I would know that he was listening, and I would realize that I'm not alone and that we just have to celebrate in a different way now. And but I had to experience it. I had to cry. I had to let it out. I had to say, this is a new way of doing it and let it be what it was. And that really, really helped me to get through a lot of things. You just have to let grief be grief, and you just have to find a new way of living with that person in a new way because they're still very alive with us.
Hmm. It's really interesting. Yeah. Just really feeling it. what you're saying. Wow. So how can people get your book, Susan?
Well, it's on my website. It's at Amazon, so you can look it up on Amazon. It's called The Miracle of Marrying My Heart. And it's my website is www.susan-peters.com, like the tombstone. The dash, I laugh now because the dash to me is the living, it's the life we get to live. It looks really small on the tombstone, but life is our biggest part of living and it's the most important. So it's kind of neat that it turned out to be that way for my website.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow. Well, I know it's an incredible book. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I would just like to say that go inside yourself and love yourself. See who's inside of you. You have a most beautiful, beautiful soul that is inside of you. And it is so full of life and so full of love. And the more you can connect into it, the more it will become a part of you. And the more you will actually connect into the people that you love, the people that maybe you have lost, and to new people that you don't even know yet, that you haven't met, that will become a new part of your heart. And I just want to say it's the most beautiful thing that you can experience if you allow it to happen. Just let go, surrender, and make yourself available to see what you can receive next.
That's beautiful by going within. Wow. All right, well, I have one more question since the title of this show is Intuition to Income. So I know that, you followed your intuition in such a beautiful way, and your book is generating at least some income because I know you've sold some. So I would love for you to share how following your intuition has helped you to make more income, just, since this all happened.
Yeah. Well, it's led me to be able to put myself out there and say that I have something to offer, that I have something that I can share with the world that I think will make a difference. And so not only will it help other people, but it will help me to also establish a new way of living and a new way of life, to bring in some income in new ways through my writing, through speaking, through, being able to connect with other people in new ways, to help them through grief and loss, and to find new dreams in their life.
So beautiful. Wow. You're such a beautiful soul. So cool.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening today and just really tuning into your heart, your intuition, and just please do check out her website and her book if you're feeling called to. It's just such an incredible story, really miraculous.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Yeah, of course. All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye.